Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Larisa Miller. How are you, Larisa?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me with you.
No, it's my pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you so much for making the time. I know you're tired from travel, but it's great that you made time for us on the show. We always like to kind of leave the floor to introduce yourself and all the wonderful things that you're involved with.
You know, being tired from travel is a good problem to have right now
Yes.
after a year of no travel.
I
So
know,
I'll
right?
take it. I'll take it. So a little bit about myself. You know, I grew up on a farm in central Pennsylvania, worked for Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge for many years, spent time in the Middle East as head of business development for some members of the royal family in Abu Dhabi. Also head of their large nonprofit, which allowed me the opportunity to go into refugee camps in Iraq and Jordan and Yemen.
Wow.
And other places to work with the women and youth to give them the tools and resources to become entrepreneurs. I'm now CEO of Phoenix Global, which is an investment development and consulting firm, working on large-scale technology projects, smart cities, on 5 continents, predominantly Africa, Middle East, and Europe. I also spend a great deal of time consulting with governments on a variety of issues, particularly around sustainability. My personal mandate is towards agriculture and agri-tech. If we can't feed ourselves, there won't be any investment in any industry or sector that will make sense. So that's a personal commitment I have. And I also spend a great deal of time consulting with businesses to allow them to build, reimagine, and really accelerate their global business strategy. Because the one thing COVID has shown us is that our business community is no longer the proximity of where we live, but it's now the entire globe. And the businesses of the future, who will be the vanguards leading the future, are those that recognize that we have to be working globally.
So how would that look for a business? Does it require the business to be any specific industry that would work with you? Or what is your ideal business that you would like to work with?
You know, look, all businesses, regardless of how big or small they are, now have to be putting in strategies for sustainability and global business strategies. So we have to now be looking at how we can expand our markets, how we can be positioning ourselves to be drawing customers from across the globe, because, you know, customers are no longer the people that walk through our front door. They're the people that log on and find our presence online. You know, doing business globally means that we can now have a little bit more transparency and selection when choosing who and what to work with in our supply chains. It allows for collaboration and competitive collaboration. You know, working with a competitor doesn't diminish you in any way. It enhances you, because together you're that much stronger. You can innovate new strategies together and processes. You can, you know, add value to each other's networks, which then, you know, grows your own network and potential for business. And it allows us to really form those meaningful relationships that will allow us to reimagine our existing legacy business models and find those innovative strategies that will set us ahead of all of our competitors.
So do you help with the actual collaboration component as well with other businesses? If you're going global?
Absolutely. You know, the one thing that I think I've done well throughout my career is to build a very significant global network. You know, and I nurture that network very carefully. I'm always looking at how I can add value to that network, which has really given me extraordinary opportunities that others haven't had, you know, because I take very good care of that network, and I'm always looking at how I can enhance that network rather than what that network can do to serve me. You know, when I work with young people or young entrepreneurs or businesses of any size, I tell them that, you know, your network is one of your most critical assets. And how well you build that network, how well you nurture that network, the value that you can contribute to that network either through a meaningful introduction, putting a meaningful collaboration that benefits both parties mutually, but also thinking through, what you can offer, how you can potentially suggest a strategy that might enhance that network, that company, that business, that friend. That's really where your reputation on the positive side is allowed to grow. I look at the people we meet as the seeds and our network as the field, and it's how well we take care of that seed, and how well we regard it as a component of the whole that allows us to really be one of those extraordinary super connectors, thought leaders, and value adders to our business community that allows our own businesses to really, reach extraordinary new levels.
And it's that giver's mindset too, right? Like you're going out there, you're just thinking about them, you're trying to serve them. It's so important, because when you start thinking about too much about yourself, it has a drawback in business. I mean, in your success in your business. So it's great that you build those kind of relationships.
It can no longer be us against each other. It has to be us together for a solution. And that's really what we have to be looking at. How can we enhance one another? What value can we add one another, and do it authentically,
Yes.
And you don't diminish yourself when you stand next to someone who is disingenuous. You just enhance them. And that's true for businesses with other businesses. And, together we can solve some of the most critical issues facing our planet if we find ways to collaborate and do this together.
So true. And do you also, are you part of any board, like on any new startups or anything like that?
Yes, I sit on several boards. Two of the most interesting ones to me at the moment are in the agri-tech side. One is on the seed side and the other is on the production agriculture side. I'm very passionate about agriculture because as we have a burgeoning, growing population, we are going to struggle to be able to feed ourselves in the very near future. And, technology is the nucleus of every industry and sector moving forward. And it's no different from agriculture. And it's actually very interesting when you look at how technology enhances the future of agriculture, from AI and machine learning that allow you to understand, a farmer to understand the best seed for his growing conditions to increase his yields, or microchips that can be embedded into cows to be able to tell you the quality of the beef before they're slaughtered.
Incredible.
Or even looking at how we can take animal agriculture, which everyone is so negative about right now because of greenhouse gases and so forth, but find innovative ways to do that so that we can see beef production and carbon sequestration going hand in hand, and the trading of carbon credits and so forth. All of this is very possible. It's just, we have to reimagine that legacy business model, and we have to be brave enough to think out of the box and do things differently than we ever have before. We're never going back to normal because normal was the problem. So it's going to be those, it's going to be those individuals that can reimagine and are brave enough, have the courage to step forward and do things differently than they ever have been before, even in the face of criticism amongst your peers and those in your industry or sector that are going to be the ones that really drive this disruptive but yet transformational future.
So are you involved with that chip that you mentioned about the beef? That was so fascinating.
Yes and no. Yes.
Is it coming out, or is it out already? Like
No, so many universities around the world are doing some phenomenal R&D around this space. Yes, it's already being used in several places. And, there's so much that's being done that people aren't really even aware of, like drones that can pick strawberries, and using AI can understand which strawberries are ready to be picked and which to leave on the vine. And there's so much out there that we don't realize. And the problem is we are so busy and so stuck in the cattle chutes of our own individual lane of traffic that we forget that life never stops teaching, so we can't stop learning. And that means that we have a responsibility to study all industries and sectors to be able to find those meaningful intersections, with industry sectors and businesses who 5 years ago or even 1 year ago would have not had any value to contribute to our own business. But now there's some interesting ways to be able to tie them together that creates not only value for your business, but gives an ancillary value to your stakeholders, your customers, and your employees.
Yeah. So incredible. Like, it's just, and also if you look at people in general too, you mentioned that, thinking outside the box. A lot of people, I find that when they start becoming creative is when they start living from inside out, like when they're start using their inner powers, they start imagining, start being creative of what is possible, right? That's when magic starts happening. That's when these new crazy things start coming into our experiences and what we get to enjoy in our life. But when you're so focused on what's happening outside of you and just looking at everyone else, being competitive and all that stuff that's happening and we're generally used to, how are you going to progress? We're already behind. Like, we should have been like, if God is looking down, he's like, what are you guys doing? Like, I gave you such awesome powers and you're still here. You're not even driving in the air yet. Like,
a lot of this goes back to simply having courage. Yeah. And, people have all of these wonderful ideas and can see the way we should go. But when it comes time to execute on it, that's really where they fail. And, fear is a reaction and courage is a decision. And I always tell everyone, my kids especially, that, courage is the antivenom to regret. You may not have it all figured out, but take that first step. Have the courage to take that first step, which will lead you to the second step and the third step. And, sometimes life is a bit like a rubber band. It pulls you backwards, but use those moments when it pulls you backward to slingshot yourself forward. And, if you make a mess of today, you can always forgive yourself and start fresh with the sunrise. But it all goes back to having the courage to be the one to take those steps. A ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships were built for. And sometimes when we're sailing that big sea of business and life, we face the perfect storm, and sometimes we have calm, smooth sailing. But if we're not brave enough to actually go out and sail that sea, we won't know the extraordinary rewards that life and business has to offer to us.
Yeah, so true. Beautifully said, actually. I like the way you articulated that whole thing. It paints a picture. And it's such an important picture, right? Such an important picture. For your startups, for example, are you open to other ideas or startups other than agriculture?
Look, I'm a principal partner in technology parks being built in several places around the world. It's going to be more essential than any other time that we really prioritize and harness the power of technology, and that we have the resources to be able to collect and store our data. Data centers are going to be integral to the future, but a technology park that really encompasses all manners of technology, from IoT to AI and machine learning to, robotics and cybersecurity. What COVID has shown us is that, while food security is our number one global crisis, guess what? In 1 year, cybersecurity has tied food security. And we can see how vulnerable we are, how many fractures we have. When you look at the Colonial Pipeline here in the United States, when it was hacked with the ransomware attack last month, and we had no fuel here in the southeastern United States for almost 2 weeks. And, JBS, the large beef processor, had their cyber attack about 2 weeks ago. And immediately that has an impact to all the consumers with the prices on our shelves and the access to product. And this is just the beginning. We're in the infant stages of what cyber attacks are going to look like as we move forward. So I'm very pleased to be a part of technology parks, working on smart city projects, looking at how the cities of the future will have to be developed, and the mandate that they have to our global society to be the epicenter of, responsibility, all stemming around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is something that needs to be integrated into every single business model, regardless of whether you're a micro enterprise or a large multinational. It truly does have to be us coming together for a solution.
And you mentioned smart cities. So are you able to share like the top 3 ideas or concepts for a smart city that is public information that you can share right now that makes people's lives easier?
Sure, absolutely. I think that the Sustainable Development Goal that is becoming of most critical import is the social justice and strong and fair and equitable institutions. That's something that faces us all globally. And, our cities of the future are going to have to prioritize our social integration and unity to a greater degree. But when I look at smart cities, making sure that citizens have access to connectivity, and that's the first thing that everybody thinks of when they think of a smart city. But it's
Wi-Fi. Sorry to interrupt, but Wi-Fi everywhere. Like you don't need.
I lived in the UAE for so many years, and I could be in the middle of the desert, and I had connection to Wi-Fi, which is very rapidly being regarded as a basic human right. So access to education, access to food, access to shelter, and access to connectivity. It's so important for all society, for all citizens. Understanding the health of our buildings and the efficiency of our buildings and how our buildings operate is going to be key moving forward. Looking at the waste management strategies of a city is very critical to a smart city. Understanding how we process and regard our waste, how we look at recycling, how we look at repurposing. When I lived in the UAE, I had the pleasure to work with BIA, which is the largest waste management company in the UAE. They're based out of Sharjah, and they took Sharjah to a zero waste emirate, to the point where they're landscaping the landfills. They process every single bit of waste goes through. Amazing. Glass is repurposed. Rubber is repurposed. They're paving roadways with recycled tires. They can take automobiles and construction aggregate and process them down. And at the end of the day, what is genuine waste can then go to waste to a waste to energy plant. So, it has to be us really working together to recognize that we have a responsibility to be the stakeholders of the future, and to build this mentality into the educational system that is guiding the youth for the future, so that they grow up intrinsically seeing the value of sustainability and understanding the responsibility we have to tomorrow. Essentially, we've done a horrible job of preparing the planet for our youth, so we have to prepare our youth for the future, essentially, and making sure that they have the knowledge, the tools, and the resources to be able to reverse the course of the planetary challenges that we're facing.
And do you foresee like North America or Canada, America, and all that, like actually integrating something that UAE is doing right now? Do you foresee it coming in the near future, or is it happening? Like, I'm not aware.
Look, it's inevitable that we are going to have to draw on the innovations and strategies that are being developed around the world without regard to who is the first to get it done.
Like are they in works with that kind of stuff? Are they working?
Collaboration is so important, especially at a governmental level. there were many things that COVID showed us, but one of the things that COVID showed us is just how fractured our global systems are and processes. And the only way that we can, recover from this last year and really be resilient in the face of the next global challenge is if we work together, we collaborate, public-private partnerships, government to government, making sure that we are sharing the innovative strategies across the board and contributing value that goes beyond who got there first, but making sure that, we all can move ahead in lockstep with one another.
Yeah. So important. I'm so grateful that you're involved in this stuff. Larisa, like I could feel the energy, like you mean so well for everything, the world, the people. Like, I'm glad that whatever you're doing, you're in the right place. So it's good. But now tell me, how did you, like, was there a transit? Like, did you ever work anywhere like an employee in the past?
Yes. So
what happened? Like that transition, can you kind of share what happened that you went into entrepreneurship?
Well, I've been an employee most of my life. I started after college at the Department of Agriculture in Pennsylvania. I went on to work for, like I mentioned, Governor Tom Ridge in his Office of Public Policy before he went on to be our first Homeland Security Secretary. I worked for the royal family in Abu Dhabi as head of business development for members of the royal family. So I've always been an employee, I'd say, 80% of my life. But what has always given me the opportunity to have, what's given me the chance to have opportunities that no one else has had is that, I'm always looking at how I can fill fractures that others can't see, how I can connect dots and reimagine situations. Yes. And that is something that a lot of people are either stuck in the channels of what they think is their responsibility and their job description, that they're afraid to step outside of that and see how we all can interconnect with one another to add greater value. So I've been an employee most all of my life. And having built on the network and gathered the knowledge and the experience and the lessons, the failures, the triumphs that I've had throughout my whole career, it allows me now to serve as a CEO of Phoenix Global, but to work with other individuals who want to be entrepreneurs, because the future of business belongs to the entrepreneur and the small business owner and no longer to the multinational. And this is really something that we all have to be cognizant of and aware of. The big guys are going to need the little guys. That's how they get their new innovative tech strategies. The greatest inventions, the new future unicorns, those are all coming from, the entrepreneur at the end of the day. And so that's a priority for me, is making sure that, whoever has something that can contribute in an extraordinary way to the future of our planet and the future of our societies, that they have an opportunity to be able to introduce that concept, that invention, that idea, that service to the world in a meaningful way.
So what do you feel like? We always like to ask what our guests, their inner superpower is that got them to this point. Is there something within you that you feel like it's a superpower that helped you achieve what you have achieved?
So when I was a kid, my father, who's 90 years old and still working full time, I might add.
Awesome.
He was always someone that would not only think in the now, but would always be thinking 20 years ahead. And people would look at him and say, that's never going to happen. And then it not only happened, in the future, but it didn't take 20 years. It was only 3, 4, or 5 years. And so they would always come back to him to help him imagine the future. And I think I've been fortunate enough to have picked that up from him, is my ability to connect dots and fill fractures that no one else can see and anticipate where we're going to be down the road, and then find solutions for that right now. And I think that served me very well. That, and I think the work ethic that I picked up from him, you know, I won't quit. I'll find a way
That's
to get
awesome.
something done, and that's what's brought me to this point.
Amazing. And it's such a special skill, right? To be able to see 20 years ahead. That's like entrepreneurship dream, to come up with that.
Doesn't take a crystal ball. All the signs are right in front of us. You just have to understand how to connect them all to find what the ending of that particular story will be and how you can change that ending.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned 90 years old, your dad, right? So it's very similar. My dad is 87 and he's still working. So he's not talking about retirement. He's actually making plans, goals, 5-year goals and stuff. So we're all like saying, just relax. He goes, no, why should I? Right. I just started kind of thing. So it's amazing. I hope I'm like the same way. I think I will be very excited for every day. So
me too. Me too.
It's pretty incredible.
It's a really, it's a world that is being driven by very rapidly accelerating progress. And, it's being able to imagine how to play a role in the progress of our future, and distinguish yourself from all of your competitors as you do so. And, they say the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. It ended because of progress.
Yes.
And we have an opportunity to really play a meaningful role in where we're heading in the future, doing it in a way that will benefit generations to come without diminishing the ROI or our financial returns or, the definition of success for each individual business. It's possible to be able to make a social impact and environmental impact and accelerate our business financially. Too often people think that, you can't have sustainability and profitability together. And small businesses say, look, I can't afford to put these strategies in place. And I fundamentally disagree with that. And so I work with them to understand how on a micro level they can be integrating sustainability into their business model. It doesn't mean impacting all 17 of the SDGs. It means just picking one and making as much of an impact to that as you can. The smallest impact leads to the biggest returns. And that's what we have a responsibility to recognize and embrace.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So this, your mindset it's incredible. Like you have a good mindset, right? So you could tell, like you're always, even that statement, even when we were talking about that, you could see a way out. You can find solution. Like you're always thinking the positive pole, not the negative pole, and law of polarity, right? So have you done like mindset training in your past, or are you naturally, because of your dad, like how do you have this type of mindset?
Look, I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with mindset training. And I think it's something that a lot of people benefit from.
Oh, yeah.
It gives you clarity. It allows
changed my life.
Yes, absolutely. But, I think for some people, it's just something you have. It's just in you.
Unconscious competent, we call it.
You know what? And I think for me, that's been something I've been blessed and cursed with my whole life. I always was more comfortable with adults than my own peers in many instances because I didn't think the same way. And, but, it's those people that have that intrinsic ability to understand mindset that have a responsibility to take that understanding of mindset and share that with others.
Yeah.
Because it is something that can be cultivated and you can strengthen it and build on it.
Yes.
And I think if more people focused on mindset, that would lead to, greater emotional intelligence, that would lead to tolerance and empathy and overall happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not a happy society. We need to prioritize happiness.
Yeah. And that's where all the creativity comes from. When you have calmness of mind and you have that, create like just a well-being, a fulfillment, you start innovating, start creating, start building relationships is transformational. Like you see people struggling, like even in Clubhouse, like I go to different rooms and you'll hear people, and then you just hear it, like they're in that entrepreneur, the force, like they're trying to grow and they're trying to figure out strategies. And I just feel bad because you could just tell them that it's in the mirror. Like you just got to figure things out first and then work your way from inside out. And you'll see a lot of beautiful things start happening in your life.
For sure. And I think too many people, especially in Clubhouse, are trying to figure out how that person, and that person did it.
Yeah.
And, you
They're trying to
know,
get gold nuggets, right? So
do it in your own way and follow and chart your own path. If we're all, we can't all be collectively together in the middle, because there's nothing that then distinguishes us, and you don't want to be in the middle of the road, because the middle of the road is where we get killed.
Yeah.
So, you need to be off on the side doing your own thing, gather the best advice, guidance, words of wisdom from those around you, put it all together to collectively paint the picture of your own journey.
Your life. Mm-hmm.
And, when I talk to entrepreneurs, it's important that they understand that in this day and age, they're not just a founder of business, they're a founder of change.
Yes.
And that's very important. But the only way you can do that is if you're finding your own way to make that impact and not trying to emulate everyone else that's following their own pathway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the help is needed, so the more we can do this for people, the more we can make them aware. It's better for everyone involved. It's not just that individual as an entrepreneur. It affects their kids, their family, the kids, friends in the school. Like it's that butterfly effect. Like we're all together, you know what I mean? So if somebody's struggling, they got to help them, and then that will replicate, right? So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, Larisa, I could talk forever. You know what? It's been awesome talking to you, speaking to you about all this. I hear you on Clubhouse all the time. I wanted to bring you on the show, and I'm honored that you did. And everything that you say there or anywhere else, and even here, I see that you're in that direction of that change that is so needed 10, 20, 30 years from now, that our kids, like they're going to experience and feel and understand that it came from people like you, So I want to like say thank you so much for what you do and how you are. And I wish you like complete success in everything that you do.
Thank you. It was such an honor and pleasure to be with you. It was a great conversation, and I'm thrilled to have been able to spend this time with you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.